Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Mates podcast. I am Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey dude, great to see you. So today this is Pixar Part 4. So as we said, already over halfway through now. We're getting through the films rightly, and I'm just going to pass over to my good friend here, and he's just going to explain what films we're going to be talking about today. So Callum, off to you, mate.
Yes. As Matthew said, four parts into the six-part
Yeah.
multi-series arc on the Movie Mates channel of Pixar films.
Yep.
It feels like we've been doing this for like 3 months. I can't believe it. It's only been like 2 weeks. I don't know. I feel like I've watched way too many Pixar films. Like I really didn't think that there were this many.
Yeah, it's sort of deceptive how much they are, and a lot of them are quite similar. Well, they're all quite similar tonally, so they all just like mesh into one, don't they?
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about Brave. Can you hear my page going? Like
just a slight bit, but it's all good. Not distracting it.
Brave, Monsters University, and Inside Out.
Yeah, so this is quite a mix of films, I suppose, because we've got like a prequel in there, and as well as two like sort of new standalone projects. So this is probably the first film. These are probably the first like two films that we're covering were like they're completely new projects, probably since like Ratatouille, I'd imagine, or something like that.
Yeah, I believe
so.
Wall-E.
Wall-E, it's a good one. But yeah, thank you to
And
everyone. And Up, yeah. There's quite a few of them.
Not good films, but but yeah, they do a fair few original premises.
I do. But yeah, thank you to everyone who's recently liked, subscribed, and commented and shared and all that good stuff. We really cannot thank you guys enough. Yeah, by the time this episode is out, I think we should have our Life During Lockdown Part 2 episode up. Well, we definitely should have that up. So be sure to check that out if you haven't seen it. We just talk about like the news stories throughout lockdown, don't we, Callum? So it's more of an informal chat. So go check that out, and yeah, be sure to comment your thoughts on the films we talk about down below. And yeah, do you want to crack right on with our first film then, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be starting with Brave, a film that I had seen a couple of times before. Was this your first viewing?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, man, because I actually saw it when it came out, but it's a weird film where I think maybe I was a weird age for it. I don't know. I just have really little nostalgia for it when compared to the likes of Up and Cars and stuff like that, and Monsters University. So no, what about you? Do you have much nostalgia for it?
Yes, I had also seen it when it was in cinemas. So it came out in, I believe, 2013. So we would have been around 11ish. Do you think that you were too old to appreciate it? Is that what you mean by sort of a weird age?
I don't know, because maybe it's something like that, because even as like a studio, I think maybe this film was probably less well received than the other original Pixar work, so it was sort of like a strange time for the franchise. Maybe it was my personal take of it. Yeah, maybe it was. Do you think for you it was an age thing?
Oh no, like I've liked it since I saw it.
Cool.
Do you mean that? Yeah, I've sort of just been a dumb kid at heart. I've always loved kids' films.
That's
So
a good thing.
I think I feel like at that preteen stage, most people would have been like, "Oh no, it's dumb. I don't like it." But I just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good on you, man. Good on you. So I'm just happy to go by your notes, brother, and I'll chip in when I can.
Okay. Well, I'd first wanted to mention the music because I think that it's immediately apparent just how spectacular it is.
Yeah, man, it's pretty great, and that goes for most Pixar films. The animation and the music is always top notch, and I actually think it's quite unusual. Like that this film is sort of the first fantasy element or fantasy theme we've seen in a Pixar film, and I think maybe it's the only one. I'm trying to think of other ones, but it's certainly the first.
Onward, I know you haven't seen it.
It's certainly the first that I can think of, and it sort of like defined the genre, and also is it the first Pixar film to have a female lead protagonist?
From memory, yes.
Yeah. Well, certainly a standalone. Obviously, we've seen Finding Nemo.
Dory is a big part of Finding Nemo. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm trying to think. Miss
Eve and
Elastigirl,
Wall-E.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it is a very 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 interesting film to talk about, like genre wise.
Yeah, so like just going back to the music, like I do really think it possesses like a magical and historical quality that I think
Yeah.
perfectly matches the film. And I have to say, I think it's my favorite Pixar score.
Oh, that's a hot take, man. It sort of reminds me of like sort of rural, like Celtic Scotland, sort of you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it in every regard.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So a big character in the film is Merida's mother, and I will be chatting so much shit about Eleanor. Like
Oh
half of my
yes,
notes are like, "What a bitch."
I actually have a
Uh,
few points
but
about King Fergus and
oh
how much
really?
of a bitch he is. Yeah,
Seriously? Oh, we'll certainly get into it. But I feel like it's immediately apparent in this film that her mother just has like a completely bizarre perspective about what's
yeah,
important to Merida's image. You know, that they're monarchs. You know, people have no choice but to respect them. But she sort of uh, tells Merida that she has to keep up a certain uh, image as a princess, and
yeah.
I really don't think she has to do anything to gain the kingdom's favor.
Absolutely not, man. It's the film sort of does have sort of more adult themes of arranged marriages and so of some description there as well. Not to the extent of that, of course, but like that theme still certainly is there. And obviously, like Merida lives in quite a old-fashioned hierarchy of basically her family's the royal family of some description. And like you said, like I think Eleanor doesn't possess like the right nurturing qualities for her daughter to express herself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I have written is Merida's mom the biggest Pixar villain, and I
Oh,
think that was maybe a bit harsh when I wrote that,
maybe a bit harsh,
considering Syndrome is a
but
murderer. Uh,
yeah, man. But like, yeah, I mean, to be fair, when she does throw Merida's bow in the fire, like that is a pretty villainous act, I must say.
yeah, because I mean, when Merida tears the tapestry, it's an accident. Oh well, no, it's not really, but at least Eleanor deserved that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, she got her revenge, transformed into a bear. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the film takes a weird decision because I think that they sort of present Merida as like a petulant child and who's incredibly rebellious against her mother. But I mean, I don't think we would respect her as a character if she just like accepted the oppression that her mother puts on her.
Absolutely, man. And I think that's what some of the strength about Merida's character. She's like a really empowering young woman in the film. And I think she's got a very like I don't know if you agree, but I think she's got like a very distinguishable look for her, like the frizzy sort of red hair. I think that's a fantastic visual there. And it's sort of like I personally really enjoyed that. And I think I'd probably enjoy it more as like a young female audience member because it's the first time sort of from a female to female perspective that you can sort of visualize maybe yourself there in Merida's position, and it is interesting because to have Merida and to have a first female lead protagonist. So I just loved her look, I thought it was great.
Yeah, I fully agree. There's a part in the film where Merida and Eleanor are both too bit heads. They're both too headstrong to discuss the marriage issue with themselves. So Eleanor discusses it with Fergus, and Merida discusses it with her horse Angus,
Yeah,
and they intercut both of these arguments, which I think is kind of bizarre because that sort of gives the arguments the same equal attention and
yeah,
seems to present them as equally valid. But
yeah.
Eleanor's is complete garbage.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's an interesting point. Like, do you think the movie tries too hard to get you on side with Eleanor's ideas and philosophies and stuff?
Yeah, I think that they definitely present them as equally valid. You know, I think they give the characters pretty much equal screen time, at least in the first act, so that they both have a chance to explain themselves. And yeah, I do think they didn't go far enough to say that Eleanor's like worldview is incredibly sexist.
That's the thing, man. It is, and I actually hot take, and maybe it's not so much of a hot take because you probably agree. I actually prefer Eleanor as a bear because then she can't come out with any outlandish stuff.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think it's the fact that they're presenting a world that's obviously set hundreds or potentially thousands of years in the past. We don't really get an exact time frame,
Yeah,
but just sort of with the visuals and the concept of clans and tribes, like it seems to
yeah,
be, hundreds of years ago.
yeah,
Uh, so obviously they need to present that was the mindset of the time, but I feel like they had to go. They should have gone further to criticize that viewpoint. They needed a character to have that viewpoint, otherwise it wouldn't be realistic. But you also shouldn't. Man. You shouldn't present them as like a feasible argument that the audience could agree with.
I mean, I think that's such an insightful point there. That's excellent, because I couldn't agree more, because I think it is important that it criticizes those contemporary values at the time. I feel like I'm rehearsing my Frankenstein essay from level, but I do agree with you, man. And I think the film is kind of, by Pixar standards, I think it's quite lazy in the plot points in general it picks up on and blatantly rips off. We've seen the must save the character from a spell before sunrise from every Shrek movie, pretty much. And we've seen the character transforming into a bear from another Pixar or another Disney project, Brother Bear. And I thought the film was a blatant rip off of both films, both franchises, rather.
Yeah, no, hearing that, I didn't really pick up on that, but I definitely, especially see the Brother Bear comparison, like that's a huge difference. I never would have picked up on Shrek, I'll be honest. I don't think I've seen any of those films for 10 years.
Yeah.
So we see a little bit later in the film the presentation of the possible suitors for Merida, and I did strongly initially believe, because I haven't seen this film in maybe 5 years or so. I did think that the three old gross men who were the heads of the clans, I thought that those were the suitors that were being presented.
Imagine, man. I think the film probably would have got a massive uproar from that, just because of the massive age gap there. But I mean, I just thought it was really interesting. Like, in this, I suppose in some instances the film does empower women, but like from my view, the film sort of, I don't know. I'm really interested to hear your verdict on this, because in this situation, it sort of flips the roles between men and women, and Merida is allowed to choose which one rather than they choose her. It's three men competing for a woman, not three women competing for a man. So I thought that was a really interesting dynamic, and when she shows them up in the archery, I thought that was absolutely magnificent. What are your opinions on that? Do you disagree, or what do you think?
Oh no, I really agree with you. Yeah, it was refreshing to see. I mean, obviously, who a woman chooses to marry is her choice. It should be her choice. It's horrible to see anything otherwise. Mm-hmm. But in a situation where the marriage is arranged, it was at least good to see that she had some options, some choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a different take, even though it was still too restrictive. Obviously,
massively so, man, massively so.
And after Merida leaves, that presentation, sort of a huge fight breaks out between all of the clans over who deserves Merida more. And I just definitely had to think that back in those days, there are no hospitals. They're beating the shit out. They're beating the shit out of each other. Small injuries are killing those people. Like,
even from
half of them are dead.
They're dead.
Yes, like at the end of the film, when they're sailing off, like half of them are going to be dumped in that ocean.
Oh yeah, big time, man, big time. Where I'm surprised like some of those old dudes are still alive, given that like the life expectancy is probably like 40 years old or 30 years old at this time.
Yeah, definitely.
But hey, Pixar.
Yeah, I mean, obviously these characters are part of a royal family, and I just sort of appreciated the fact that they don't seem really entitled. Like, I know I criticized Eleanor's perspective of what she's expecting of Merida, in that she needs to like keep up a certain image, but the fact that she does believe that shows that she cares, and that they don't just that they're not just entitled to the love of the public.
That's a great point, man.
Even like the triplets have to be very respectful to the staff that they have working for them. They didn't seem like too far up their own asses.
You know what? I think royal families are such a fascinating discussion, because they're probably the biggest thing I can think of like tradition still present in society. And I don't know if we could talk about it on a podcast one day. I don't know if there's like many royal family movies about, but I'd love to talk it with you in depth, because I know you've got some really interesting and really great opinions there.
Can I throw in an idea for you?
Yeah, go.
Like, I don't know if you've heard of these films, but like on Netflix, every Christmas they release a Christmas Prince film.
Oh really? Okay. What are they about?
Yeah, and they're garbage, but I love them. Okay. I love them so much. Yeah. So I think maybe one of our Christmas episodes this year, if we do a couple around December, that could definitely be one that we talk about.
Oh yeah, man. And I can't. We haven't even discussed Christmas films yet, so I can't wait to hop on that bandwagon because there's so many. You can definitely get a few episodes milked out of that one.
Yeah, I mean, I know we don't talk TV a lot, but I mean, we can definitely talk, Christmas TV specials because
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
a lot of British shows especially do that, sort of Gavin and Stacey and The Office and Extras and
absolutely,
stuff, there's a
absolutely.
lot of stuff that we can mine for that.
Yeah,
I have
but
to say that Merida's plan to compete for herself is incredibly smart, and if I was in her position, I never would have thought to do that.
absolutely, and I think that's where her strength lies. Like in a lot of Pixar films, and we've pointed out plot holes in terms of character motivations and ideas and so on. But I think Merida's what it really is pretty much bulletproof throughout the whole movie. And I suppose we'll get into the ending and the complications that arise with the witch and so on. But no, I just thought absolutely, man. I thought it was a really smart idea and a really great way to empower her because strangely enough, Merida might be one of my favorite protagonists in a Pixar film, certainly in the last decade or so.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, yeah, usually the lead is quite dull. I mean, we
Yeah,
have like Marlin in
Wally.
Finding Nemo who gives a
Yeah,
shit, Wally who gives a flying fuck. Uh, you know,
yeah,
I guess Carl Fredricksen. I mean, he's boring, but like I don't know, he's sweet at least.
yeah.
I would say that there's few protagonists to choose from that you actually enjoy watching as much as Merida.
Absolutely, man. And I suppose that sort of gets me, and I suppose we'll talk about this later in more detail, maybe as well. But I'm sort of surprised there hasn't been a sequel in this film. Not in my knowledge, anyway. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, there hasn't been a sequel. There are no plans for one, and I think it must be just due to like the middling reviews reception. But I mean, I would say that this is quite a high standard in Pixar. I mean, Pixar for me is pretty hit or miss. They
Sure.
create some of the best films of all time and some pretty weak films,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that this is a strong contender for one of the best. Like
Yeah.
I think I'm probably going to review this a bit higher than you. I
Okay.
think you're probably going to
Okay.
think because you pointed out how you find the plot points to be a bit weak. I think I'm going to go quite strong with the
Oh, fair
review
enough, man.
and
Yeah,
surprise you maybe.
that's the great things about films, and especially kids' films. They are subjective. So sometimes I might have rate a movie higher than you. Sometimes you might do the same. Sometimes you might do the opposite. So that's why I love reviewing these movies with you, pal, because like sometimes we can make each other's opinions change. So no, you know what, man, I think some of your points have been great. So I might end up rating it higher than I was going to.
We shall see.
We shall
But
see.
there's a moment during Merida competing for her own hand where she is firing arrows. A moment that you mentioned is incredible. It's a
Absolutely.
sensational moment in the film where
Yeah.
she fires into the bullseye each time, and slowly as we see her about to approach the final target, her mum is walking up, and I was just like, "Fucking shoot her!" I don't know.
Yeah.
Even when I was like 11 watching that, I was like, "Shoot
Shooter.
her between the eyes."
You know what the thing is, man?
I don't know.
Maybe it's
That's how
like
I was expecting the film to end.
that would be brutal. Well, it would have been brutal. No one would have been a sequel. But maybe it's like Emma Thompson's voice acting or something. She just can portray such an aggravating character. I don't know.
Yeah, I never knew that that was Emma Thompson because she had such a convincing Scottish accent. I don't know. We're obviously not Scottish, but I mean we have met Scottish people, so
Yeah.
I
Plus,
don't know
yeah.
how niche an accent that is. I it's probably not highly regarded in quality by the Scottish.
Yeah. To be fair, our country does have some reasonably strong links to the country as well. So yeah. One thing I sort of wanted to semi segue into with you is the subject of meeting celeb. Who's the most famous person you've met? Because my answer for that is actually Emma Thompson. So that's how I'm sort of getting the link in there. So I wanted to know
When
who's
did you meet Emma Thompson?
so basically, my mum and I were in London, and she was like, Do you remember that like Greenpeace parade or something that she did? It
No, I
was like
don't
a year.
remember
It
it.
was like a year ago. So she was. I never actually met her face to face, but I had saw her in the flesh. But I wanted to know who's the most famous people you've either met or saw in close proximity.
Well, as I've mentioned in our previous Pixar episode, I have met my favorite
Oh
podcasters
yes,
from Do Go On.
that's such a great one.
I've seen Manu Bennett.
Oh,
You were there as well, right? At that point, or had you gone home
I
before
think
the
I'd gone
Manu
home.
Bennett panel?
Damn.
Yeah, so I saw him in person, and I was there for Q&A. He's Deathstroke from Arrow, if you don't know.
What's he like in person?
Aside from that, hmm?
Is he like as big, like muscular as you would think? Is he like big?
Yeah, he was huge. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that.
And
Okay.
our friend Sean got to like shake his hand and meet him and ask him a question. So that was a great moment. Aside from that, I don't think I've met many big names. I know you said you've walked past other
Yeah.
celebrities, right?
Gillian Simmons from UTV, pretty famous.
What are you snacking on there, Matthew?
A Dairy Milk Crunchy.
Oh, love.
I'm so hungry, sorry. I hope that doesn't ruin the audio experience for anyone. I'll try to step away from the mic, but I think who else. Nothing springs to mind. I'm sure I've mentioned names to you, but um they mustn't be that famous in my head to recall. But no, it's just a wee segue I wanted to ask you. But that's interesting. I know you have some good stories with the two go on fellas and lady, so good on you.
Indeed. So just looking where it was. So
No worries.
Uh, yeah, Merida's dad clearly doesn't want her married off. So, I mean, if she wants to just wait her mum out, like, I'm sure that she could completely avoid having to get married. If she was just kind of, you know, I mean, she shouldn't be quiet about the issue because then that's placating her mum. So she should
Sure.
tell her mum that she has an issue. But I feel like if she just constantly avoided, getting married, like I don't think her dad would have forced her down the aisle or anything.
Her dad
I mean,
seemed.
you said that you had some points about Fergus being a little bitch, so I'd love to
No,
hear that
that
now
was
if if you
I
wish.
was probably being a bit too crude there, but I actually think Fergus is I mean played by the wonderful Billy Connolly. He seems like I think the film subverts like the male stereotype of the king like really well. Like he's sort of he I would almost argue like he seems like sort of one step below even Eleanor's like reign of terror, so to speak. He seems like a nice guy.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like he's probably my favorite character in the film, and that may well just be because he's voiced by Billy Connolly. But he seems like a genuinely great dude.
He kind of
I don't
reminds
really, but he doesn't seem like a warrior. Like
no, not at all.
if it feels like in this, we obviously don't know how this monarchy works, but it seems to me that it kind of works like how the monarchy works in Macbeth, where it's sort of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
highest appointed soldier is made king. Like you have to
yeah,
fight
yeah.
in a war and be really highly ranked. I don't know. He seems
Absolutely.
too sweet.
He does. He seems like he sort of reminds me of what I would imagine sort of like a true Geordie if True Geordie was like a went back in time or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I really see that.
But the thing that
And
go ahead, man.
well, yeah, just like the biggest fight that we're made aware of is him against Mordu, and he lost that. So I mean, we
Yeah,
don't really see him as a particularly successful warrior.
that's the thing,
So
man.
what were you going on to?
Yeah, it's just exactly what you said, bro. I think the film's my main criticism of the film is the lack of real plot and there's not much action in it, and I think the film probably would have been better opening with a fight scene between Fergus and the bear. It was at Morlus, did you say? Yeah.
Did I say that? Mordu.
Mordu. And Mordu. Because I think I would have added another action scene to the film and give it another layer there. Maybe because he loses his leg, they didn't want to be too graphic with it. So I understand that if that was the case.
But yeah, for a film about a protagonist who's an archer and it's set in like a time where you would imagine there would be a lot of war and stuff. Yeah,
Sure.
I did anticipate more action. It's surprising that this film, she is sort of pitted as an action hero in the marketing and
Sure.
posters and stuff.
Yeah.
She's always carrying her bow, and she's obviously a very successful fighter. So it is sort of surprising to see that this is one of the Pixar films that probably has one of its strongest emotional arcs.
I think
I
it's
think
probably
that's
because
surprising to me.
it's mainly character driven is probably the biggest praise we can give it. It is a character driven study, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, and that's sort of why I wanted to see more of this, in a potential sequel.
Yeah, that's a good
Uh,
point.
but I don't really know where you could go with it. I feel like everything's been covered. I just feel like I want to spend more time with those characters.
Yeah, man, that's another really great point. And I had a question to you in my notes, like, would you like to see a sequel? And it seems like you would. So I'm trying to think. We like to ponder potential plot threads for movies or replacements for the movie. So I'm trying to think of a potential theme for the second one. Maybe if they could set it in like rural Ireland, I think that would be cool. If they went over to like Celtic times or sort of similar, I think that would be cool. Or like William
Yeah.
Wallace, they could do that or something like that. I don't know.
What I would love to see really is finally a Pixar team up movie.
Oh,
And
what are you
I
thinking?
think if they like assembled like pretty much a Pixar Avengers using
Yeah.
say like a super from The Incredibles who has time travel powers,
Oh,
you know,
good idea.
picking out like history's greatest heroes.
Good
You
idea.
know,
That's such a good
I think
idea.
that's probably one of the better
Man,
ways to connect the films.
a Pixar like team up movie sounds great, and that's such a great idea, man. I like can't believe that I haven't even seen that on a theory video or anything. Like that's great. You
They'll
know,
never do that though.
imagine they did though.
They will never do that.
Do you think that people would just think it was a blatant rip off of the MCU or not really? Because
I
I don't
think if
think
it
it
was
is.
all superheroes, people would. But I think if you just assembled like history's greatest heroes, you know, superpowers and superpower and
Sure,
you know non-superpowered people's
sure.
like I don't think that's a copy of the
Not at
Avengers at
all.
all.
Yeah, I agree, man. There is so many different avenues you can go down there as well, and I'd love that, man. That'd be great. Yeah, my notes are pretty brief about this film. I gotta be honest. Apologies.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So we like you know I'd say through our notes we've so far only covered like less than the first third of the film.
Yeah,
So uh obviously we see Merida go and get a spell from a witch to try and turn her mother into a better version of herself, but is
sure.
inadvertently tricked into turning her mother into a bear.
Yeah,
So Merida presents her mother with this magical cake, which eventually turns her into a bear and calls it a peace offering. And despite Eleanor having been a complete insane, you know, overbearing mother who's pushing this sexist agenda, she actually fully believes that Merida has given her a peace offering. I said if I were Eleanor, I definitely wouldn't be expecting a magical cake, but I'm definitely expecting there to be shit in there. And then
oh
she just
yeah.
instantly gobbles it up in front of Merida. Like there'd be something
Oh,
nasty in that.
there'd be some sort of poison or substance in there, shall we say?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't really understand what the witch had to gain from giving Merida that dodgy spell, because the witch doesn't seem evil,
it
and
just seems a bit
but
weird.
she just seems a bit weird. I mean, you know, she's off to her like magic slash music festival, Wicker Man, or is it Witcher Man or something? Like
Yeah, something
they
like
make a
that.
joke, regardless. Uh, but yeah, I don't, you know, she doesn't seem evil, so I don't think it's a you know a immoral agenda on her part. So I don't really know what she had to get from it. I mean, she got paid regardless, so I don't know why she
Yeah.
wouldn't just do what Merida was implying.
Oh man, she is definitely like some sort of freaky time traveler because she was like making wooden sculptures of Pizza Planet trucks, you know?
And Sully and
And Sully,
yeah,
yes, good point.
other
Yeah.
big Pixar characters. Although to be fair, I wouldn't have been able to pick that if I hadn't seen you know screenshots of that previously. Like
Yeah,
I didn't actually when I was watching, I was specifically looking out for those Easter eggs and I couldn't see anything.
sure.
But Merida is incredibly big. She just says like I want you to change my mom. Like give her some specifics.
Yeah. Although one thing about Eleanor, and we've mentioned like we prefer her in her bear form. I actually love the relationship her and Merida develop throughout the film, particularly when she is a bear. And I sort of like that she's sort of like losing grasp on her humanity throughout the film because that does give it some stakes in some instances.
Yeah, and during that part of the film where she starts to lose her humanity, Merida is trying to teach her how to hunt, but Merida has been so like so diabolical in turning her into a bear. The least you
Yeah.
could do is feed her. Like
Oh,
you
absolutely.
don't need to make her like catch fish with her bare hands,
Yeah.
because then I feel like you're encouraging her to embrace her bear form, and
Yeah.
like your plan is to change her out of that. So I don't know why you would want her to become acclimatized to that persona.
Yeah, I know, man. Like, do you ever think about being a bear?
I don't.
No. But it
No,
must be quite like it must be quite strange. Maybe not for the bear, but I don't know, something about the act of like fishing, like for with like bears fishing is it's always been weird for me because in the film we sort of like see the fish just jump into the mouth rather than like Eleanor like you know go for it herself. It was strange.
Yeah, sort of Pixar does a few things where they make sort of weird decisions to have characters do something that you wouldn't expect Pixar to show, but
Sure.
then they chicken out of like showing the full
Yeah,
consequences.
yeah.
Like I find it weird in a Pixar film that they're showing a bear hunting for fish,
Me
but if
too.
they're gonna show it, at least show it accurately.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. And yeah, like you said, like the film does sort of show some weird things, but not show other things. Like they don't show King Fergus versus Mordu at all. So yeah, like you said, yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. Uh, I have very little else to say because I'd say there's a solid 25 minutes where just nothing really
Yeah,
happens,
yeah, yeah.
and I have very little to say aside from the ending. So do you have anything to sort of fill that gap?
What? Just one point, man, and there's the triplets.
Yeah.
They're sort of characters I expected to really get on my nerves, but I actually thought they were absolutely adorable, especially when they're bear
Oh yeah,
cubs.
100%. Oh yeah, I was gonna say as the bear cubs, I think that's some of the cutest animation I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely, and it's actually so underrated. Like I'm surprised I haven't seen more like triplet memes or anything about, you know?
Yeah, I would expect that to be like memed to the level of Baby Groot and the child from The Mandalorian. You know,
Yeah,
they're on the same level of cuteness, I think.
I think so. So,
But
do you want to go in the
the
ending then?
whole yeah, sure. So the film comes to a head where the bear is discovered in Merida's room, and Fergus, believing it's either Mordu or a similarly violent bear, chases it into the forest, and they finish where the film began, around a sort of Stonehenge-ish monument of rocks, and they're about to kill Eleanor until Merida finally understands that she didn't need to stitch together the tapestry to mend that bond. She needed to mend the emotional bond
Oh
between her and her
wow,
mother.
yeah,
So her mother is returned to human form, and we discover that she has changed her perspective after hearing Merida's impassioned speech about how she needs the right to choose and how everyone should have that right,
sure,
which is incredibly relevant to to any era. I
absolutely,
think that's a message that applies to all of time, and I
absolutely,
think that'll be a useful message in the future. Uh, but then when she says "Mum, you changed," and she means her physical way, but also her perspective on marriage. And Eleanor says, "You did too." And I have no idea why Merida would need to change anything about herself.
yeah. She seems pretty empowering, and it's like she stands up for what she believes in, and she's a great protagonist. So I completely agree with me. She doesn't need to change.
Yeah, I think Eleanor's missed the point again. Like, she sort of considers this, a compromise where they've met in the middle, and it does kind of seem like that. Merida used Eleanor's, analogy about the forgotten kingdom whenever she's giving her speech.
Yeah,
So there has been a sort of compromise. There has been a sort of compromise made, but I think it's completely ridiculous that Merida should have to change any of her views because I think
absolutely.
they were all fully understandable and were just supportive of rights for everyone.
Completely, man. Couldn't agree more. You've nailed it there because I think maybe the film does get bogged down in trying to create like an entertaining sort of and emotional scene rather than a scene that makes sense. And I think it just missed the mark there with that line.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have anything further on the film, or did you want to launch into ratings?
I just oh sorry, I was reading a note from like Monsters University there for a second. I got confused. No, I'm just I think I'm just happy to go into ratings actually. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
So mate, you've changed me. You've changed me. Uh, my original note I had said was some good scenes, but fairly uneventful. 6 out of 10, but I'm gonna upgrade that to a 7 just because I thought your points were so great and insightful, and I agreed with them. I think this film is actually
Well,
quite
thank you, sir.
underrated. No worries. Go. What's your rating? I think it's gonna be a bit higher than that if I were to guess.
Yeah, I mean, I also agree with you. I think it's incredibly underrated. I think it's the hidden gem of the Pixar oeuvre. You know, they're
Yeah.
they're ones that are held in such high esteem that I think are not good at all, really.
Yeah.
Uh, but for the most part, I really enjoy Pixar. I've had a great time covering them with you, and
Likewise, mate.
this was an absolute highlight. Uh, and yeah, I do feel things for this film because I saw it at such a young age. It's probably one of the only Pixar films I saw in the cinema.
Oh,
Uh,
cool,
you
cool.
know, I've seen some of the last few in recent years. You know, I saw The Incredibles 2, and I saw this. I think those are maybe and Monsters University. But aside from that, I don't think I've seen any others in the cinema. So I think I maybe hold the ones I have nostalgia for in high esteem,
Yeah,
and I just pretty much love everything about this film.
I'm glad to
So
hear
I'm
it.
probably gonna give it an 8.5.
Oh, that's great, mate. I thought your review was really inspired, and I thought I didn't expect you to really have a great time with this film, so I'm pleasantly surprised, mate. I'm pleasantly surprised.
Did you think that it was gonna be one to bore me? Because I
I
don't
thought
usually love
so.
historical stuff.
I thought so. I thought it would have been on like an up sort of level where you can respect it, but not necessarily love it and enjoy it, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there are probably going to be a few that we talk about in the coming weeks that are probably going to come under that sort of ideology.
well, now, man, do you want to move on to our second film of the day?
Absolutely, yes. So
Happens to be my
next we're going to
favorite
be talking
Pixar
about
film.
it might be or it is.
It is.
Oh damn.
Oh damn.
So next we're talking about Monsters University, a film that I did see in the cinemas, shockingly, and I have loved for many years. So I would love to hear your initial thoughts before we sort of jump into the chronology of the film.
Yeah, man. So I'm completely the same as you. Saw it in the cinema. I loved it for years, and I think this is and this I know this film sort of I think it goes completely under the radar. Like it gets a lot of like not necessarily criticism, but a lot of people I think I'd say a lot of people would say it's bland and stuff. But personally for me, I think this is one of the rare instances where a 10 out of 10 film can be followed by a film that's equal if not better. I think at first Monsters Inc. is marvelous, but I think this film's a step above that just for the creativity there shown. And we this is the first real prequel we've seen in the Pixar film chronology, if I'm correct in saying that. And I just think this whole universe it explores is just so expansive and so great. So I can't wait to get into talking about it with you, brother.
Would you have preferred this film or a direct sequel to Monsters Inc.?
Um, I'm sort of glad we got this film because I've got a point about a potential and the reason why we haven't seen a Monsters Inc. film since this. And I'm really sort of glad. I'm glad we got this because I think it's a hidden gem of animation.
Yeah.
What about you?
Uh, yeah, I fully agree. I think it is another hidden gem of the Pixar filmography. Uh, and the third one that we're talking about today, Inside Out, I think it's somewhat underrated. So I think
Yeah,
we've got a good roster today to talk about.
might be the best
And
roster
yeah,
we've had in a while since episode 2, maybe.
yeah, I think so. And I think maybe part 6 might rival it.
Oh, cool, cool. But I'm just
Actually,
looking.
no, probably not. I think there's like one out of three is good in part 6.
Well, listen, man, I'm just happy to go by your notes, and I can chip in when I can. That works.
Okay, so the film opens with young Mike Wazowski, and he's on the school bus, and they're going for a day trip to Monstropolis to visit Monsters Inc. And it wasn't until the moment where Mike says, "I wish I had pockets," that it fully dawned on me that they're all fully naked.
But also, some of them wear clothes, like Dean Hartscrabble, which is weird.
Yeah, I'm just baffled. I think that they pretty much clothe the women so that there aren't like, ooh, monster boobs. Like, but
Yeah,
then
yeah.
how do they procreate? Because we see a character that has a mother. So I don't know. It's kind of weird to me that every Pixar film I'm thinking about, but how do they have sex? Like with
Yeah.
Cars and this, I'm like,
Cars and
but
this.
where are the dongs?
Yeah.
Where are the dongs?
I think it's a very weird choice that but also like they do close some male characters as well, like the male lecturer who wants to bang Sully clearly is wearing a suit. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
weird.
I guess it's just to maybe match their personality. You know, sort of the more introverted monsters maybe wear some clothes like what's the name of the like nerdy guy who wears like a sweater vest? That's sort of like the dad of the group.
Oh, Dawn is it or Carl? No, Dawn. Dawn, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's Don. yeah, he's sort of like a more insecure, introverted character, so I kind of get why he would wear clothes, and I
Yeah,
guess it's sort of character dependent. But for the vast majority, it just seems that they're fully naked.
absolutely, man.
So as I said, the kids are visiting Monsters Inc. And I don't really see why you would take kids to a workplace if you don't want them involved, Karen. Uh, you know,
It seems like a
the
pretty
the,
dangerous
the, the
area as
teacher's
well.
kind of like, yeah, the teacher's like, you can't step beyond that line, and then she yells at Mike for getting involved. But I mean, it's basically work experience, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is. I actually don't blame Mike at all for stepping over the line, and I kind of wanted to ask you: are Monsters Inc. and Monsters University related? Because they've got the exact same logo, so there might be a few copyright infringements there if they're not.
Yeah, I guess it's just regarded as like the Ivy League school to get you on a path to become a scarer. So it's kind of like I guess it's the Harvard of America or the Oxbridge of the UK.
Sure.
So I guess just the elite scaring school. But yeah, I agree with you. It does seem a bit suspicious. A bit
Yeah, man.
nepotistic.
Yeah, like what you mentioned there about like how do the monsters procreate? I just love the diversity in the universe there, and like
Yeah,
we see that Mike is related to another one in his class, like it's his cousin or something, and the fact that they're related but they look nothing alike is great. Like there's so many, it's so vibrant, and there's like giant slugs and there's like giant like 60 feet tall monsters in there, which I don't know how that would work, but I mean I just think it's a really interesting universe.
yeah, no, yeah, I love the diversity of it. I fully agree with you. There's no two characters that are alike unless they're you know mother and son, as we do see in the film.
Yeah,
But yeah, I love that aspect of it too.
absolutely, man.
But yeah, as I said, how are you meant to know that you want to be a scarer if you're not allowed to be involved in that world without having the qualifications to do so?
Absolutely, man. Now, I can get why they wouldn't want him in the human world because he could get trapped there or like alert a human child. But like like and the whole film, the whole like theme of the film is that Mike isn't scary, and we mentioned this in our Pixar Part Two, I think.
Yeah,
I generally think he's scarier than some of the other monsters in there.
he's the most demonic piece of shit I've ever seen in my life.
His eyes the
You
size of
know,
his body.
yeah, I know. Like, who's not finding him scary? Like later in the film, we see that he goes into the human world, and they start like petting him like he's cute, and
Yeah, like let's be
I'm
honest,
just
mate.
baffled.
Let's be honest. If you were asleep tonight and like you turned on the light or something, and Mike Wazowski in his full, like he'd probably be pretty big in
I'm
real life.
shitting myself,
You're
shitting
shitting yourself.
myself.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
big time.
but like if you compare him to Sully, Sully is like one of the only monsters completely covered in fur, and we see that Boo calls him Kitty. So like,
Yeah,
how is he considered the scariest monster in that universe
and
compared
you
to
know what the
Mike?
other? I think there are some members of Uzma Kappa who I would absolutely be shit faced terrified of.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, all like they're all monsters. How are any of them not considered scary?
Yeah, yeah, and
Like I get some are scarier than others, but to say that any of them are just completely innocent looking and unscary, I do not understand at all.
that's the thing, man. I suppose like I know they're drawn and they're animated to be less scary than like Randy or something, for example, because he's more of like a I don't know if it's slimy is not the right word, but like I don't know
No,
how
I
to
get I
describe.
get you.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to ask like why would Dean Hartscrabble accept Mike into the scare program if she knew already that he wasn't scary? Like where's he going with that?
I mean, I guess.
Is
I
it like a
mean, we
degree?
obviously don't see his high school experience, so I don't know. Maybe he got the appropriate grades
He
to at
seems
least
pretty
make it
smart.
into
Yeah,
the first semester.
a good point.
But yeah, it is a degree because you would think in this universe like what other jobs are there, uh,
Yeah,
and I,
fair
I
point. I don't
guess
know.
you know it's kind of an incomplete universe because it does seem that the whole world revolves around like can production for scaring and then scaring and all those like associated trades. But I mean, are there lawyers? Like
That's
it's
the thing.
like we
Yeah,
don't we don't really see the expanded universe
yeah.
aside from scarers and the associated trades.
Yeah, like you see, like they go to a restaurant. The restaurant's maybe like the only other like business sort of job I can think of that it's shown in the universe. But I don't necessarily like. I feel like I'm coming across very critical of the universe for that. Like I personally don't. It doesn't affect my film enjoyment or film experience. So I know we're
Oh no, not
discussing
at
it
all.
otherwise. It's just interesting to talk about, I think. So I guess that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah, because like that's not what the film's about. You know, the film isn't about lawyers in the monster world, so I can't criticize it for that. I would just like to see more of this world because I love seeing it.
Absolutely.
But we
Absolutely.
also see that that in his character design, Mike wears braces or a retainer of some kind. It must be a retainer because he removes it. But I
Yeah.
mean, what's he using that for? You know, because it's not. You know, if he's using that to fix his teeth, he's definitely going the wrong way if he wants to look scary.
Yeah, that is such a
Or
good point.
do you think do you think
Yeah.
it's like a reverse retainer to make his teeth worse?
That's a good idea because you do see a lot of monsters here with like underbites and overbites and stuff. So, and so maybe Mike's trying to make his teeth worse to make it more scary. That's an interesting film theory. I like that. That's good thinking. I like
Yeah, it's just, yeah, you obviously see sort of like more detached jaws because they have, huge, maybe jagged teeth. So yeah, maybe that's just the look that he's trying to create, but they didn't explicitly say. So
it.
I was just wondering. But we have talked about the fact that, we sort of appreciate these films more looking back on them because we can kind
Absolutely.
of see the more injustices in the society and the deeper themes.
Yeah.
And I didn't really pick up on the fact that nepotism is a huge part of this film and
Yeah,
how
man.
infuriating it would be to watch. Now that I've got a clear worldview, in the 6 or so years since I first saw it, and Sully's like absolute bullshit that is just accepted because he's a Sullivan, really angers me.
Oh man. And it does go on in real life, for without doubt. And
Yeah, like just when I was watching it, I was like bloody Jared Kushner, which I don't know if you remember from politics.
Remind me
The guy,
again.
the
It,
guy
it
who
sounds
the guy
familiar.
who
Oh yes,
paid his way into
Harvard.
Harvard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Is that the one whose family were like involved with the Trump family?
Uh, yes. Jared Kushner, I believe, is Ivanka Trump's husband.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, that's a fantastic point, man. And you'd think I don't know why the lecturer he clearly has a strong fascination for Sully's father, who is also a scare. It seems.
Yeah, maybe one of the more famous scares in society. And yeah, it's just upsetting to see because of how much that applies, in today's political climate. But it's just everywhere, unfortunately. How
Absolutely, I couldn't agree
nepotistic
more.
every institution is.
Yeah. And I think the film really deals with more complex adult themes. It sort of deals with sort of being an outsider as well in your group and in university because we see like Randy and one thing I think is really interesting about the film, it was originally the Randy Mike Wazowski friendship that existed. And I find that curious that they decided to mention that even though it's never mentioned in Monsters Inc., which I suppose is the negative effect of having a prequel that has to expand the universe more. But Randy makes cupcakes and they spell out Liam in his head. You got to feel like you'd want to hang around with a guy at uni with cupcakes, right? Or at school even.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always baffled me in high school movies and college movies that like no one wants to just be friends with the person who's a nice person. It's
Yeah,
always who has the most popular image, who's the richest, who's the best looking. I mean, obviously, like you know, I guess people who feel that way about themselves and are more egotistical try to look for that in a friend. But
sure.
I would never want to be friends with someone because of popularity. Like my pure directive in having a friend is that they're nice and I like them. So
Yeah,
I am kind of
it's a
baffled
great point,
that
man.
I'm baffled that Mike, who's clearly a nice person, would seek to be part of like one of the popular fraternities.
Yeah,
He
man.
seems like the kind of person who would fit in best with people who just appreciate him for who he is.
And I think that's part of his great character development there, and that's a great point you mentioned, bro. Because I think he really becomes himself more when he joins Uzma Kappa.
Yeah, he's allowed to be himself with no filters on. Even when
Absolutely, it's a
he's
great way
around
of putting it.
Sully, I like that he's unapologetically himself, and I really respect that from Mike. As you said,
Absolutely,
he becomes even more so throughout the film, and he's
absolutely.
able to defend himself and stand up for himself, and I love that for him.
Likewise, brother, 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 brother.
Yeah, I just have a lot about like Sully being like the least scary person I've ever seen. Not person, monster, but what else? Uh,
Bear.
and I honestly like seeing how badly Sully treats Mike throughout this film, I just get so baffled as to how he ever forgave Sully. And they sort of orchestrate this emotional moment at the end where Sully says that he's afraid. And I don't think that's a good enough excuse. You know, he says that he felt the need to live up to the legacy of his father, basically, and that's what made him scared. So he put on like this bravado. But I mean,
Yeah.
you can have sort of an egotistical bravado whilst being nice to people. You know, you can think highly of yourself and have high self esteem whilst also supporting others. I just don't think it's a good enough explanation. It did not sell me.
It's a good point, man. And I think maybe the film, I personally enjoyed it as well. And I think the film nearly misses the mark when Sully tampers with Mike's scare program for the final of the scare games, I think. And I think that's a very nearly moment of messing that up, because I'm not saying Mike would have beaten the other team, but I think he probably could have given it a good go. Like he has obviously researched and he excels in the university class, you know, or in the college class. So and you know, we even see Mike doing better than Sully because Sully's somewhat of a one-trick pony, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I guess just the simulator didn't really account for technique. It seemed to just be calibrated to, you know, volume and aggression, which kind of confused me because, you know, that isn't what being a scarer is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, man. And actually, I never really considered that, but I kind of it's sort of a similar thing to like the cheapness of exams, of testing people's knowledge. And some exams, I suppose, like do test your somewhat of your intelligence, but a lot of it is just memory, isn't it? And we're just recently out of the school experience. You know, we're more qualified to speak in it than most. But I
Yeah.
think I think it is more of a memory test of sort of looking back in it in the last few months.
Yeah, because obviously a very important part of examinations is, you know, critical analysis and
Sure.
comparing and contrasting, which is, you know, that's talent.
Yeah.
But you know what you're comparing and contrasting is just how like the sheer amount of content that you can remember. And
Sure.
I think a lot of the subjects that we did were prime examples of having to remember a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I would say English was a very, you know, fair judge of just talent,
Absolutely.
because often, you know, you would get the poems or you would get the content, and it's just down to your analysis of it.
Yeah, 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 I was sort of like thinking more like GCSE, like subjects more, because A level sort of does expand upon, like you said with English. That's a really great point, and I'd imagine other subjects like history is a lot like that. But whereas you know you do have to remember plot, different dates and stuff, but you also have to use your essay writing skills. So I know we've sort of I've gotten us sidetracked. Apologies about that, but I just thought it was interesting that like they used like a somewhat of like a per talent grading system sort of to rate the
Yeah.
teams. I didn't think that was fair.
Well, I mean, I think that everything we've mentioned is perfectly relevant, because I mean, education and the bureaucracy behind it is a huge part of
It's a good point.
this
Yeah,
film.
good
And
point, man.
I would say that Dean Hardscrabble, it's kind of just baffling that how like such a bitter person who clearly just hates people trying to learn. Why would anyone that bitter want to become an educator? Like
Yeah, yeah,
she never it never seems that she actually wants people to progress and learn. You know, an actual teacher would never, you know, give a child an ultimatum or or throw them out of a class for a petty reason. You know, if you really saw potential in Mike and Sully, you would not throw them out of the class if you were an actual if you were a person that's worthy to be a teacher.
that's such a great point, bro. And she sort of it seems like she sort of gets a high out of proving people wrong almost and embarrassing them and degrading them. So it sort of is a curious choice as to why she's an educator. That's a great point.
I mean, you know, teachers like that do exist, but you know, I would also question why they're in education, because I mean,
Yeah,
often, you know, there are complaints about, you know, uh, about how hard it is to be a teacher. It's, you know, it's a very difficult job. So I don't see why someone who wasn't fully committed to the education of children would ever want to be a part of it. So So as I said, Dean Hardscrabble is incredibly bitter about Sully and Mike knocking over her prized souvenir from her scaring days.
Yeah.
So they're forced to participate in the scare games, the campus-wide games to decide which fraternity possesses the greatest scarers. So the first event that we see is a race to avoid these monster urchins that that pierce your skin and make your limbs balloon,
Yeah.
but never do they actually say that your entire team has to cross the finish line. The rules are incredibly unclear.
It's a good point, man. That's a really good point. And it's curious that like a university is allowed to do that legally. Like that seems pretty illegal.
Yeah, because I mean, Dean Hardscrabble, says that she created the games and she fully endorses them. It's not like this is some sort of like underground, like illegal like Hunger Games kind of business. She's like going to the
It's almost
events and
like
going
that.
like, yeah, come on, dickheads, let's do
Yeah.
this.
That bit actually is underground as well, so that's what makes it even more shady.
Yeah, no, it just seems all like so suspicious. And then when like they cross the finish line and Nathan Fillion's like, "Oh, you fucking dickhead! Your entire group had to cross the line." Like no one said that. No one said that.
Yeah. Listen, man, like I just think I really do enjoy the scary games because I think it does provide some really interesting montages. And then we're also introduced to some of all of our Uzma Kappa members. And I wanted to ask you, who's your favorite member?
I would have to say that it's Art, the purple character with many limbs, just because he's voiced by Charlie Day.
Ah, cool, cool, cool. Who's Charlie Day?
He plays Charlie Kelly on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia,
Oh,
a series which I've watched the first 4 seasons twice, and then I've
oh
just
wow.
never continued. So I've started it again, and I'm
Good
halfway
man.
through season 3. But
How's
there's
how's it
14
holding up?
seasons.
Wow, jeez. How's it holding up for you?
Well, see, it's kind of a difficult show to talk about because all of the characters are terrible people. So there's some truly horrific storylines to watch. Like some of the dialogue is genuinely, it makes you so uncomfortable because it's so over the line and so not PC. But it's written as a critique of people like that. So they're presenting these characters and saying these are terrible people. It's not like the writers have written this going like, oh, this is hilarious. This is appropriate. They're saying these are garbage people, so
Okay.
this is why they act like this.
That
And
sounds
other
really
people around them who aren't terrible people are like, wow, you're terrible people.
that sounds really insightful actually. That sounds great.
Yeah, and the reason that I started watching it again is that it recently broke a television record in that it's the longest running live action television comedy.
Good. 14 seasons, you say, yeah?
Yeah, they've just been renewed for 15, so for their 15th. So as soon as they finish that, like they'll have smashed the record.
And does it have some of the same cast as the first season?
Oh yeah, the entire cast is still there, which is
Wow, that's
shocking.
dedication.
That's dedication because I mean usually like the average runtime for a successful show is between like five and 10 seasons, and usually around like season 6, season 7, like main cast members start to drop off, and
Yeah,
sometimes the show before that happens, they just find a way to end the show. You know what's the word, like grit, they find a way to end the show gracefully
okay,
before they start losing cast members, but often the show either gets cancelled before they can finish it or main cast members drop off
sure.
suddenly,
Yeah,
like we saw with Batwoman.
it's a good point. That's a really great point. Now, I might have to watch that. You know that you've really intrigued me there. It sounds really insightful, and I will time code this in the description below. Callum and Matthew talk. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia because I'm sure some people might be interested in that show.
It has some of the greatest guest stars you'll ever see on a TV show. Like season
Let me
two
just give it a Google.
introduces season 2 introduces Danny DeVito as
Oh,
two of the main characters' dad, and he is one of the best characters on television. And shockingly, for him being such a trash person, he's probably the most moral character in the show,
really?
which is shocking. Yeah,
Who else?
when you watch it.
Caitlin Olsen is
Yeah,
she's not
and
related to Elizabeth, is she?
she is not, but
She looks quite similar to her.
her and the creator of the show, Rob McElhenney, are actually married in real life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they met on the show, and
I didn't.
they're now married. It's lovely.
Alexander Daddario's in this as well. Cool.
I don't think she's been in it yet, but like from my watching, so she may be a later introduction.
Mate, that sounds really insightful. I love that. That sounds great. I'll definitely try and give that a watch, mate, over the next couple of weeks or months.
It's so weird what we go off
I
into
know,
like
man.
during Pixar
No,
episodes.
anything's possible, isn't it? Nothing's off limits.
Indeed. No. So who's your favorite character of Uzma Kappa?
That's where we were. I like Dawn.
Lovely, yes.
He's a
And
delight.
we finally get to see that he finds love with Squishy's mother Sherry.
That was quite a deep
Lovely.
subplot, I think, because like him like adopting like the stepfather role for what's the kid's name?
Isn't it Squishy?
Squishy. Sorry, that was it. Yeah,
Is it? I don't know.
yeah. We'll
I know
call him that.
like
He looks
his name's like
squishy.
Andrew or something.
He looks
But
squishy.
yeah, the no, like I think his name's something like Andrew, but then Squishy's a nickname. So after Uzma Kappa wins the Scare Games, Mike and Sully have a heart to heart before Mike finds out that his model was tampered with. And Mike says, Mike admits to also having been a dick. He says, "So have I," in their discussion, and that, that just made me furious because
You don't think he has?
Mike has done nothing. No, and it's so sad to see him like still unable to stand up for himself. You know, Sully apologizes for being a jerk, and Mike actually thinks he's done something wrong, and I think that's just such a toxic friendship. Like it makes me so upset to see.
Maybe it's just Mike's character. Like he always sees himself second to Sully because that's how it's sort of presented in Monsters Inc. You know, Sully is the scarer and Mike is, you know, his assistant. That's his job role. So it is quite interesting that you bring that up, brother. That's really interesting. I never really had considered it before. I think the film redeems that, but by the heart to heart they have in the human world when they acknowledge their friendship together, that's probably the scene of the film for me. But that's a really insightful point, mate. I'm really interested to hear that.
Well, I just feel that it's Sully's responsibility as his alleged friend to build him up
Sure.
and not tear him
Yeah,
down. You know, he
that's a good
shouldn't say
point.
like I was a jerk, so was I, and go like, yeah, you were. Moving on. You know, you should
Yeah,
go.
man.
No, of course you weren't. Like I've been a complete asshole, and that just adds fuel to the fire that Sully is just a piece of shit, which is sort of, you know, the character dynamic where at that point I was wondering whether a prequel was the right idea because now they've like they've retconned the character of Sully to be an asshole. So now I think when I rewatch Monsters Inc., I'll be thinking, wow, he's still a piece of shit. Like I feel like that this was damaging to his character.
Do you not think he's a bit of an asshole in Monsters Inc. a little bit? No, do you think he's a bit? I suppose he's not much.
I, I never I never felt that.
Maybe not. Maybe like it's hard to say because I always think that they're very confident characters, and maybe I'm mistaking that with arrogance in Sully's case. But I don't know. Maybe it's a really interesting point, mate, and I think it's one we can debate. And I think there's multiple interpretations for it for sure. And I don't know. Maybe do you think a prequel was the right idea?
No, I mean if I don't think this prequel is the right idea because I love this film as a standalone film, but as a
Sure.
prequel to Monsters Inc., I feel like it is. It leaves too much of a stain on the character of Sully for me to
Okay.
go back and watch Monsters Inc. and just find that character great because I'm gonna be like, well, also I know what you did in college and you're a piece of shit.
Yeah. So are you saying you prefer his character in Monsters Inc. then?
Well, I mean, I think it's perfectly fine. Like I like this film, and to say I don't like a character because they're a bad person would be strange. Because you know
Yeah.
I like a character when they're well presented as the character they're meant to be. This character is meant to be a dickhead. He's a dickhead, so
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
therefore like that presentation of the character. But the fact that they've done a prequel film and ruined an already established character, that makes me not like them.
I respect that, brother. I really do, and I thought that was a really great point. I don't know. I feel like sort of Mike and Sully's friendship really solidifies itself and embraces itself when they're in the human world. When which I think would be a really great setting for a sequel. Maybe Mike and Sully get trapped there, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's just when Sully goes, "We weren't friends before," to Mike, and he now acknowledges that they are. I thought that was absolutely beautiful. I loved it. What about you?
Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get that same vibe from it. I was like, well, fuck you too, Sully. You know, like Mike has tried his hardest. He has helped Sully more than anyone has probably helped him in his life, and only now he considers him a friend. Like Sully was the one who was closing himself off to Mike, not the other way around. And they sort of accept equal blame for the fact that their friendship didn't grow. I just blame Sully. I don't know. Like this
Yeah,
film
fair
made
enough.
me angry because it's such a good film, but just the portrayal of Sully really angers me.
Fair enough. And it's really funny you should say that because the character I feel the most sorry for, and I never expected it, is Randy.
Yeah, I get those layers from you,
Yeah.
definitely.
Um, no, I thought your points were really great there, man. It's made me think about it and reconsider it. I'll think about that after we stop recording because it is an interesting debate.
Yeah. Well, what you were saying with Randy, I feel bad for the character with how he's treated by his university peers. You know, like the other fraternities whenever he's trying to appease them with say cupcakes, and you know he's just trying to be a part of the gang.
Yeah.
But then I'm sort of baffled that the only person he seems to hold a grudge against was Sully.
Yeah, I know.
When you
Yeah.
know when the Uzma Kappas are like fighting for their reputation, you know they're trying to not be, you know, they're trying to become part of the scaring program, and they're trying to, you know, make sure that Mike doesn't get expelled. And you know it's weird to me that he holds a grudge even though he's going to have a chance to participate in the scare games, you know, for the next
Yeah, that's a
three
good
or
point.
so years of university. So it was kind of just baffling that that was the one that he latched onto. He was like, I'll never be beaten by you again, Sully, which obviously foreshadows what happens in Monsters Inc. But yeah, it was just strange to me that he's the person that he held a specific grudge
Yeah.
against.
It's funny you say that. Like, I have a question. Do you think it's weird that we never see any of the Uzma Kappa members in Monsters Inc., or do you think that's the film's like subtle critique of like you do always stay friends with people from your school and university?
I don't think it's intentional. I think they were just adding extra characters, as you said, to expand the world.
Okay.
So I hope that now this film came out since the original Monsters Inc. That when they show the sequel series, which is coming out next year, I hope that some of these characters make small appearances because I
Absolutely.
mean all of them got onto the Scare program at the end. So hopefully we see them working at Monsters Inc. Especially now that these people are good characters, you know, as in that they're good moral people. So they might feel more influenced to join Monsters Inc. now that they know they don't have to scare children; they have to make them laugh.
Absolutely. I think they'd be great at that, to be honest. I think they're quite funny characters. And we'll definitely have to either review that on the channel or speak about it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool.
So we found out that Sully had sabotaged Mike's simulation,
Yeah.
but I know that it was on the lowest setting, the simulation, but surely registering any response from the machine proves that Mike has some potential. So I'm kind
Absolutely.
of confused. I'm kind of confused because he was able to register 100% out of the lowest setting. So surely he could have got, you know, like surely he can scare some weak kids. You know, just put him on the scare program and just give him more sensitive children.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure like Dawn and the rest of the Uzma Kappa members had their machines in the normal strength and they still scored pretty well. So Mike should have Mike's scarier than them, I think. So I think he should have scored pretty well regardless.
Yeah, I feel like the dean, what's her name, Hardscrabble is
Yeah.
just so it's just
Prejudice against Mike, you think?
yeah. I just think that she's kind of an idiot. You know, she doesn't see potential where there is. You know, if you can register any response from the machine, you have the potential to be a scarer. Surely.
I would have liked if there was a potential connection between Dean Hartscrabble and Waternoose from the first film because they are quite similar looking creatures in the sense that like they've sort of got like a I don't really know like an arachnid type quality. I don't know if you see that
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with you there. Yeah. Um. Did you have any comments on sort of the events following that?
I just have a little point about the ending, but I'm happy to wait until we get onto that if you wanna crack on with your points, mate.
I only have points about the very end, so you crack on with whatever you have down.
No worries. Well, I just wanted to like say how much I loved like the semi-realism of the ending. Like both Sully and Mike are removed from the Scare program and end up at the lowest rank in Monsters Inc. So I thought that was pretty realistic because they don't survive the Scare program, and it was all meaningless really, but it wasn't because they sort of develop friendships with the members of Uzma Kappa and they rise to the ranks of Monsters University, which is great, you know. And we also see the Abominable Snowman, which is always fun and sort of foreshadowing his banishment. But that's just all I wanted to say about the ending, brother. What about your remarks?
Well, yeah, my very final fuck my life. My very final point also ties in with that. You know, as you said, we see them progressing through the ranks of Monsters Inc. And I just have to say that, you know, it shows like, oh, first day on the Scare team and stuff. I mean, Mike isn't on the Scare team really. He's Sully's coach. You know, he's still not a scarer.
Yeah,
And I feel like he's worked harder than anyone. He's scary. So I'm just upset to see the fact that no one appreciates him.
I know.
Like
I know.
it's a sad ending for me because you know, he has like a smile on his face and he's in pictures where he's best buds with Sully. Like he is that is a toxic friendship. You know, Sully is a classic drainer, a classic detractor, and he like Mike deserves better.
He does, man. And I suppose that's like a trope in the first film we see when like uh Mike's photograph is always it's always showing Sully, you know, he's always like in the background or something, or not in the background, but he's always cut off. Do you remember?
Yeah, so something's always covering his face and marketing
Exactly.
and stuff.
So
Yeah,
suppose he always is a bit underrated. But the good thing is he finds love in later life with Celia, and he seems pretty popular in work. To be fair to him, I can
yeah, but
understand why. Probably
even
Crystal.
Sully puts that romance in jeopardy in Monsters Inc. by keeping Boo in the monster world. Like
Sully's the real
it's
piece
just
of shit, is
Sully.
what we've
Yeah,
established.
Sully's recklessness keeps ruining Mike's life, and I'm not happy about it.
uh, yeah, like we at the Movements channel have decided Sully is garbage, right?
Yeah, official statement on Sully, piece of shit.
Do you have any concluding points, mate?
Nothing more from me. Anything from you?
No, we talked about that film for a good amount of time. That was good. That was good analysis there. That was nearly, what was it, like 40 minutes at least? Yeah,
There and about. So I'd love to hear your rating of the film.
so this film is probably my favorite this Pixar film. I have so much nostalgia for it. I think it improves in the first, but I can't acknowledge all the points you've said, and I thought they were really insightful, bud. So I'd give it a 10. I have to, man. I loved it. I loved it. What about you? Because you had some sort of mix of viewpoints in there, but I'm sensing an overall positive
Yeah,
vibe.
yeah. I really enjoyed the film. The for the most part, when I feel that Sully's being a bad character, that's intentional from the film. But I feel like what wasn't intentional from the film is that they do want you to buy into his redemptive arc, and I didn't. So I feel that they failed in that regard
Okay,
because they never convinced me that he wasn't a toxic friend to Mike.
sure.
So I'm gonna have to give it a 9 because I
Okay.
loved everything aside from their attempt to make me feel empathy for Sully. Because honestly, I felt nothing. So
I respect that. I
gonna give the
respect
film a
that.
9 out of 10.
Mate, that was a great review, and I respect your honesty and your viewpoints there. So I suppose did you want to move on to our third and final film of today, which is another somewhat of a hidden gem. We've mentioned Inside Out.
Yes. Uh,
Yeah,
I didn't love the film. I'll be honest.
fair enough,
Wasn't
man.
a massive fan, and we'll get further into that. What were your overall thoughts?
So this is my first time viewing. I got home from Mickey D's today and put it on the TV or the computer, and first time viewing. So I was pleasantly surprised, to be honest. I remember there's a lot of hype around this film when it came out in 2015, I think, and there was a big hype train for it. You know, there's a lot of people excited for this because it's a very interesting film in terms of the themes it deals with and quite adult themes at that. So I'm really it's a really interesting concept, and I'm really interested to hear why you sort of didn't have an amazing time with this film.
Well, you know, same as you, this was my first viewing of the film, and I think had I watched it when it came out, my opinion probably would have been worse. I
Okay.
feel that my perspective on the depth of the covering of the emotions in this film is probably helped by the fact that I'm older when watching it.
Sure.
So if you want to leap into just the chronology of the narrative of the film,
Let's do it, man.
uh,
So, go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
so the very start of the film opens with Joy entering the picture of the emotions headquarters on the day of Riley's birth, and we see in a montage over the first few minutes of the film that every time Riley feels an emotion, it isn't that she feels an emotion and the emotion and fuck my life. It's so hard to talk about this film.
It
So
is. It's
because
confusing, isn't it?
the emotions I'm talking about are humanized.
Sure.
So or personified is a better term for it. But every time Riley feels something in her body, the emotions are the ones that create that feeling. They're not the ones that stop her from feeling the bad ones. It's not like Riley feels sadness and then the personified version of sadness makes that go away. Riley feels nothing until they decide she needs to be sad based on those events. Like
So
this is very hard to articulate, but it's like these emotions are deciding human suffering, which
that's the
kind
thing I
of
wanted to ask you about.
makes me not like them.
Are the emotions sentient? And two, do the emotions control her or does she control the emotions? Because I got the idea that the emotions controlled her thoughts.
Yeah, it seems that events occur to Riley, and she's a blank slate until they decide how she should respond to the situation. So if a situation happens where she's being bullied, they have to decide whether to they have the control to decide whether she should be depressed or move on and just be joyful about the good things in her life. Which
Hmm.
obviously you should feel sad when those things happen, but
Absolutely. It's only natural.
we know that just as humans because we know we don't have sentient emotions are in our head deciding that.
Yeah.
So we know that to be sad is to be healthy. But in this film, this kind of universe that they've created in this film, the emotions are the ones that dictate how to respond to a scenario. So they decide that you deserve to be in grief or deserve to suffer, and I think that makes them immoral.
That's a really, really complex and interesting viewpoint, man. I love that. And I think the movie makes the really curious choice to leave out really integral emotions. For me, a lot of these emotions aren't the big five, as I would call it. I would have I would have love in there. I'd probably have confusion or something like that in there as well. Like I don't think disgust is necessarily a key emotion. It's not something that springs to my head straight away at all.
Yeah, because just as you brought that up, I was sort of thinking that every time we see a significant point in her life, a new emotion joins. Like it wasn't until she was like 1 years old, like what 1 year old that disgust joined. So
Yeah.
maybe I was thinking, oh, once you've hit puberty, you get love and you get lust and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
then we also see inside the mom and the dad's head, and it's still those five emotions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you that for an adult human, those are not the five core emotions
I can understand
whatsoever.
the irony of me being disgusted about disgust, viewers, so don't worry about that. But what is your favorite emotion presented in the film? Because there's some fantastic voice acting in there. I know you like Bill Hader, and I really like the voice of Anger. I think he made a cameo in The Big Bang Theory as well, and I think he's in The Incredibles as Mr. Incredible's boss.
Yeah, I think so.
He's a
Uh,
marvelous voice actor. But who's your favorite, man? Who's your favorite?
yeah. So I would say my least favorite character, but the favorite vocal performance is Phyllis Smith as Sadness, because she like that is actually how she sounds in
Is
say
it?
like her big break is The Office. She was a huge part of that where she plays Phyllis, uh, and she is one of my favorite characters in The Office, and her vocal performance is 10 out of 10. But knowing that the character of Sadness decides that Riley has to act sad in relation to events makes me angry. Ironically, we'll be talking about a lot of emotions, as you said, which will be ironic. But yes, I was angry that sadness dictates when Riley has to be sad, because
I
I mean
agree.
they sort of make sort of the message of the movie is that you have to feel all of your emotions, which in human existence is true, but in this universe it isn't. If they can decide that she doesn't have to be sad, they should always decide that she shouldn't be sad.
Sure.
Like for example, the moment where Joy realizes that Riley needs to feel sadness was a memory where she feels sad and it's her sadness that brings her friends and her family over, which then brings her joy. But I
Sure.
mean, Joy could have just decided that she deserved to feel joy, after failing the hockey match. Oh, it's just so confusing.
It is, man.
There's no bureaucracy deciding that all of the emotions need to be used. They could just all recognize and see what's best for Riley and decide to, recuse themselves from the situation.
I think
They are in full control of what she feels.
I agree, man, completely. And I think the film rectifies that at the end by having like the emotions have sort of somewhat equal control over like her psyche somewhat, rather than fighting for the console. But
Yeah,
and we've sort of pointed out how like Pixar's robbed certain plot points from movies and other media. Did you ever watch
yeah.
Nina and the Neurons as a kid?
No, but I recognize the name.
So like it's about like different like multicolored sort of personified characters in a kid's brain. I'm pretty sure. Let me just Google
Yeah,
it.
I feel like that was on CBBC, wasn't it?
That was in CBBC. Yeah. So it's not exactly the same, but like I'll just show this picture up to the camera so you can sort of see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that seems suspicious. Not gonna lie.
It does, and it's probably not. It's probably not intentional because it's a British TV show, and I doubt maybe Pixar would have heard of it. But regardless, I think Sadness is probably one of the most annoying characters in the film. But I've seen a lot of
Yeah,
people say like Joy is also up there. What are your thoughts?
yeah. Joy's a bit overwhelming, but she's obviously, the the least immoral character because she actually wants what's best for Riley, and what's
Sure,
best for anyone is to be happy.
it's a good point.
But not now thinking on it, you do need a mix of emotions even in this world because your emotions are different to your conscience. So to your to your conscience. So say a person gets joy out of being racist or homophobic or sexist.
Yeah,
You know, we need to have the feelings of anger so that we know to rise up against that.
absolutely.
So
It's a good way of
so
putting it.
yeah, the film doesn't really cover conscience; it just covers emotion. So it covers your reactions, but not your decisions. So what makes someone happy is going to be different to what makes someone joyful is going to be different to what makes someone else joyful. So you need other emotions to make sure that you're angry to other people's joyous emotions, which could be hurtful to humanity.
Man, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think
How is this a kids' film?
I don't know.
I'm so tired thinking about this.
Uh, I think I wanted to ask you like well I suppose I already have asked you whether like Joy annoys you or not, and I suppose she is intended to somewhat do that because she's so like positive thinking, and but for me it was ironically Sadness that made me sad because I think she's incredibly annoying in the film. I think she really lets it down. Like I'm not like I'm not actually angry, but I know I look and sound angry, but I'm not. But I just thought like when she keeps touching the memories, it seemed like she was almost going out of her way to like be annoying.
Yeah, because you would think as Sadness, she would sort of embody like, introvert and sort of, wanting to just be away
Loneliness,
from
yeah,
people. But she always seems to be like getting involved in the situation and ruining things. And I don't think
exactly.
that doesn't really convey sadness to me. Like, I feel like whenever Joy dictates the circle of sadness, I would have thought an emotion that embodies the concept of sadness would just want to sit there and like, sort of wallow. I wouldn't have thought
Absolutely.
she would want to walk around and ruin or
Yeah,
taint all of the memories with sadness.
yeah. If there was going to be another film, like what emotions would you put in there? Because I think, like you said, like love and lust are important, and I think maybe shame as well could be a good one.
Yeah, I don't think you can really make a film with those emotions a kid's film or
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think I think these core emotions are the ones that lead to comedy and sweetness and
sure.
exactly the recipe that they want for a kids film. So I think to expand the emotions probably involves aging up the main character, and then it becomes sort of inaccessible for younger audiences
Absolutely. It's a
probably.
good point. It's a good point. Yeah, yeah.
So speaking to sort of the age of the character, I have trouble believing that someone at age 11, all her core memories are joyful. Like I feel like at age
Yeah.
11, I feel like at age 11, you'd already been through primary school in Northern Ireland. We do primary school from what like
Four.
age 4 to 11. So, so presumably she was starting our equivalent of first year in this film. And I feel like at that point,
I think
half of
everyone's
my
had a bad
core
memory.
memories would probably be they'd probably be angry or fearful at least,
Yeah, it's a good point.
relating to
Or
bullying and such.
at
So
least one of them be a negative one. What you're saying?
yeah, especially because she seems to be a nice person, Riley.
Yeah,
She seems perfectly pleasant. So that means that she's probably not a bully. So that means that she's probably not vain, and she's probably not sought out, to be part of like the most popular group where she's sort of untouchable by other people in her school.
yeah,
Like I would have expected bullying to be a part of any child's life,
yeah.
sort of in this film. Like I thought that could have been a good message to send, that
It's a really good point.
I mean, not a good message to send, just that, sort
I
of
know what you mean.
that would have been a part of many children's lives.
Mate, you've nailed it again, and you're on fire, mate. You're on fire.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
do you, I mean, mate, that's a really good point. Like, do you did this film make you question your thoughts as a child or anything, or did it make you look back in your childhood and think like, well, I mean, you've said that most of your memories, well, some of your memories wouldn't have been as happy as Riley's. In a way, like, did it make you question that or look back on it in any way?
Well, I mean, it made me think that, I as at age 11, I was probably much more boring than Riley. Like I imagine I would have had like 2 islands instead of 5. Like I don't think I had much of a defined personality, but I feel like my core memories probably would have been a mix at least of most of the emotions presented. There probably would have been fear, sadness, anger, and joy probably.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any core disgusted memories, at least at the age of 11. So I don't know how did it make you look on your childhood?
That's an interesting question, actually. Man. I never actually thought about it from my point of view. I would say probably like I'd say my memories are probably quite similar to Riley's in a sense. Like, I would say that those years were probably more of some of the happy years of my life as well. Because like, yeah, that's sort of an age where like, no, we don't really have as much well, we don't have really any responsibilities.
Yeah,
We're not
you're not socially aware.
exactly,
You are your biggest priority because you're not
exactly.
politically or socially aware
That's a
as
great point,
much.
man, and that's actually a perfect way of putting it. Because I think I don't know about you, but I think when you get into the high school, that's when you start caring about other people's opinions. Like I didn't care about whether people thought I was weird because I liked like trading football cards. That's just an example or something like that. Would you agree that you care a lot more about what people think when you hit those teen years?
I care more about their experiences, but I probably actually now care less what people think of
Really?
me.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool, cool,
probably in
cool.
P7, people call me a nerd or giving me nicknames, or the bullying probably would have hit me a lot harder than if it came today, because I have a lot of friends. No, I mean I'm not bragging there.
No, I
I'm
know,
not
I
like
know, I know.
I'm not like look at me. I'm
I
just
know you.
saying I feel a lot more comfortable in myself because there are people that don't let me like self-deprecate as much. I'll maybe make a comment about myself and people will be very supportive, and I didn't have that sort of friendship support system back in those days. So I feel better
I'm really
and
glad to hear
more
that, mate.
more emotionally strong these days.
I'm really glad to hear that, mate. That's a really important attribute to have, especially when you're like, going into adulthood as well. Like, um, and it's really interesting you mentioned that because, like, you sort of feel now that you care less about what people think, but more about the impact you have on them with their experiences. That's sort of what you mean.
Damn, movie mates gets deep when we talk
We
about
did.
Pixar, doesn't it? Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I was just interested. I've never actually really asked you. We've never really talked about this before, so I thought it was interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Sort of the less introverted I become, and the more social I become, I feel like the more confident I become in a situation. So
That's
if
great.
someone had, a negative opinion to share about me, or, with me, I mean, I think I'd be more easily able to dismiss that opinion and, drop them as a friend. If that was a friend
Yeah,
making a hurtful comment about me, I wouldn't sort of let that friendship continue anymore, because I knew that I would have more supportive friends away from them.
yeah.
Sort of, how would you apply yourself to that kind of situation?
I think I I think I take. I think I'm more anxious about what people think of me and my impact on people now than I ever was. I think now it's like I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. It probably isn't, but
I mean, I have never heard an ill opinion about you. People are like, you're the nicest guy that exists.
oh,
Gorgeous.
stop it.
Uh,
Gorgeous. Thanks, brother.
Matthew has been likened to an Italian pool boy. Uh,
No, man. Listen, and the sort of thing, one, and the sort of the last deep question I want to get into with you is we sort of see in this film, sort of, right. What was the? I can't. It's just left my head now. What was it? It was something about. What was it? What was it? What was it? This is annoying. It doesn't matter. If it comes to me, I'll ask you again. But it's left.
no worries.
Chain of thoughts left my head, mate. Sorry.
So, moving on to the chronology of the film once again. Uh, they talk about how much of a shithole her new house is, but I mean, it seems to have pretty great bones. You know, it looks like a great house.
Yeah,
You know, the
absolutely.
kind of house that I dreamed to live in. You know, it
Looks
looks
nice.
amazing. You know, if you stick a bed in there and clean it up, take the dead rats out. 10 out of
Pretty top
10.
notch.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I actually really love her parents. You know, the scene at the dinner table is probably my favorite in the film. And I think it's really interesting that the parents have the same emotions going on in their head.
But so obviously the humans aren't knowledgeable and aware that emotions are literally sentient beings inside their brains.
Sure.
But the emotions that are sentient and alive in their brains know that the other humans have those.
Yeah.
And if the sentient beings that represent the emotions in your brain are the ones deciding what reactions you have to a situation, surely they would be more considerate of the fact that it's the other emotions deciding what that human is doing.
It's a
So
clusterfuck, isn't it?
yeah, so I feel like everyone should I feel like life would go on a lot better if the emotions just didn't do anything. Like because then I know everyone would be a blank slate and no one would have a personality, but I feel like I don't know that would at least eliminate conflict. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's a difficult idea.
Do you think I think the film's really clever in the way it like deals with like stereotypical things like the train of thought. I think that's really interesting. I think the way it deals with like memories is really interesting. And I think the most interesting thing is the imaginary friend of Bing Bong. And I actually really like Bing
Yes.
Bong.
I don't know. I took an immediate disliking to Bing Bong.
Okay.
Uh, like immediate.
Fair.
But I softly the character slowly grew on me.
Yeah, his like his fading away into nothingness. It's pulls on
We'll get
heartstrings,
we'll
man.
get onto it. We'll
We'll
get
get on
onto
to
it,
it. We'll get
mate.
on to it.
Uh, but yes, at a point soon after we meet Bing Bong, there's a conspiracy for them to wake Riley up so that they can once again travel on the train of thought.
Sure.
And whenever Bing Bong gets arrested, Joy says, like there go the core memories because Bing Bong has them with him. She has zero regard for Bing Bong. Like she could not give two shits that he's just been arrested,
I
and like
know.
she doesn't know what happens in like Riley's brain prison. Like some shit could go down. She could not give two shits.
I know. I know. Did you ever have an imaginary friend when you were little?
I think so.
Did
Uh,
you? Oh.
to my memory, uh, Colin the Peanut. I believe the persona was. Let's not get into it. Uh, like
uh,
I don't think I played with the imaginary friend like she did.
yeah.
Uh, no, I don't really know what I did with my childhood. Like when I would come home, like I don't really remember what I would do.
Were you like
I
a
don't think
play
I
in the
did a lot.
park kind of kid?
No, I stayed
Video
in the
games?
house most of the time. Yeah, I just don't really know how I occupied my time because I mean I didn't really have the internet. I didn't have a mobile device. So yeah, I have no idea how I occupied myself. Like, what did you really get up to?
See, I think our generation was in the stage where like the internet was it obviously existed, but like we still had like Firefox. We hadn't had Google at this
Yeah,
stage. So like for people who like I don't want to give away our ages, but we're talking like mid 2000s, I would say, like
we have
early and
said so many times that we were 18,
okay,
like so many times.
we're 18. So we're talking what are we talking here? Like early to mid 2000s, I would say. So like 2005 to 2009. Is that fair to say? Start like well maybe live it in
Yeah, yeah,
2009. But like
yeah.
that's
So like we had a family PC, but that was it for me.
yeah, like our family, yeah, like we, cause like we were sort of saying, like our generation was sort of we didn't really have iPads at our generation, and like technology
No.
wasn't as easily accessible. So I was more of like a trading cards kid, and
Yeah, fair.
we had like a lot of my friends from back then, like we played a lot of football, so that was sort of how we spent the time. But were you always in the movies?
I was always into movies, but I feel like TV was a lot more difficult because we didn't have TiVo, so we just had to watch shows as they were on. So
Did you have
it's not like I
did
could.
you?
Did I have what?
Did you have like were you like a Sky kid? Did you watch like Disney show or like the Disney Channel, or did you watch
Well,
like
like
CBBS and
uh,
stuff?
we couldn't afford Disney Channel, but I would watch it on YouTube in parts. So
Smart, I
was
like
a
that.
Wiggly Place was a big thing in my childhood. But like shitty like 360 pixels
I'm
on
familiar,
on the
man. I'm
internet.
familiar with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I was a huge CBBC fan. This has gone tragically off topic, but I'm enjoying it regardless. Uh,
Likewise, mate.
yeah, I mean my favorite thing, as we've mentioned, is like the superhero animated shows.
Oh yeah,
Batman the animated series, Spider-Man the animated series. But I mean that was pretty much just like on Saturday mornings. You
sure.
couldn't record it and decide that you wanted to watch it later. You had to watch it while it was on.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. We'll definitely have to do a nostalgia episode where we talk about our favorite films and TV shows from our youth. That would be a fun one.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. So like we see that Riley is getting rising feelings of sadness for the fact that she's been away from Minnesota too long. So she
Sure.
decides to take her mother's debit card and purchase a bus ticket to Minnesota. And I can tell you, I'm 18. I barely know how to use my debit card. At
I
age
may have the same
11,
bit.
I
You know what?
barely knew how to use the internet. So I would not have been anywhere near this resourceful.
Yeah, man. And for any Americans listening, please do forgive my ignorance, but I don't know America like American cities well. I'd imagine Minnesota's quite far away from the West Coast where San Francisco is.
Yeah, because San Francisco's incredibly warm, right? And then Minnesota is one of the
I'm just
coldest
yeah.
states.
I have a feeling Minnesota's it sounds like one of those northern states where it was more like American Indian inspired name wise.
Yeah. Well, what
Um,
what state is San Francisco in? Is it
I think it's
is it
California.
or is it Del no
Is it Nevada?
Colorado? No, no, it's not Nevada. I'm like, please look it up and then cut this out because I actually don't know.
So
Is it?
Minnesota
I think it is California. I think
so
actually, yeah,
San Francisco is California and Minnesota
yeah.
is like
Sorry for doubting you.
no, you're okay. And Minnesota is like on the border with Canada, and it's near like um Dak North and South Dakota, so it's near like
Yeah,
the border with Canada, so it's northern, yeah. But
yeah.
it's
So
quite a far bus
surely she's
journey.
going like.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, she's going like from one of the hottest states to one of the coldest states. So yeah, it must be a huge trek.
All basically all across America.
Yeah, so she must have paid top dollar for that ticket.
We all know
I
how
don't think
pricey transit
her
tickets are.
mom's. I know. I don't think her mom's gonna be reacting once she sees that bill. Well.
What is a day ticket these days? Like 4 or 5, maybe 7 or something. Is it?
420 for an adult day ticket in Belfast. So yeah, I imagine like a cross country ticket is gonna be a pretty penny.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Absolutely.
Yes. So, excuse me, Jake. Oh, I thought my brother was screaming at me. No, he wasn't. That's cool.
No worries.
Uh, so as I said, I didn't expect myself to feel anything when we unfortunately see the death of Bing Bong, which you previously alluded to.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I teared up. I started to cry.
Did you?
Yeah, I did not expect this to hit me,
Oh,
but
bless.
I think just the look back at just emotions in childhood and sort of things becoming less important in your life and the realization that things don't matter as much. I don't know. It just made me emotional, and it sort of culminated in that one moment.
That's a
And I have to
beautiful way of
say,
putting it,
the
mate.
line that broke me was when he's disappearing and he says, "Take her to the moon for me." I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. It hit me so hard.
I think it's the fact his realization that like Riley doesn't need him anymore is the sort of heartbreaking element of it because I think we've both spoken about nostalgia here in the podcast, and like it is sort of heartbreaking, like how like it just goes by like that, doesn't it? Like you never really appreciate it until it's gone.
Yeah, great way of putting it. It's tragic to see, honestly.
I know, tear it up here.
It's such a mad film to talk about. Like it's so heartbreaking for so much of it.
It's not even. I don't
Did you
even
have any
particularly
for?
like it. It's good. It's
No, I
fun.
didn't. I didn't love this film. Like, there's nothing great about it. I have no strong opinions. Like, yeah, it's just our discussion that's been
Yeah,
genius and
we'll take the
emotional.
credit. God damn it.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like we've only gone on to like talking about deeper stuff because we're trying to extrapolate meaning because they didn't tell us enough. I think they
Yeah,
did a bad
yeah.
job of answering these questions, so that's why we're asking each other. Uh, did you have any further points? Because honestly, that's all for me regarding this film. Because I
Nothing
think it's incredibly uneventful, especially in the third act.
completely, man. I think the biggest I'll actually no, I'll just leave my concluding sentiments for the rating. So I'm really interested to hear your rating, brother, because we have gotten quite deep in this one. So what would you give out of 10, mate?
Yeah, so as we've said, this film caused me to think a lot. I've never thought so hard about a kids' film before,
I know.
and I really didn't expect to get into this level of depth and meaning when talking about a Pixar film. So I
Sure.
have to applaud it on that. It clearly works for an adult audience. But on the surface, it's a kids' film, and it can just be like a fun, bright, colorful, fun film for them. But for me, it held great meaning, and it has. I would say thematically, it's amazing. Because it hits all of those emotional beats about forgetting things and things not being important anymore, and as you said so well, like not missing something until it's gone. So those added to the emotion of the film for me, but the film's not that impressive in of itself.
Mm.
So I'd probably give it a 6.5.
Mate, I was really great. I've actually enjoyed listening to your points more than I've actually the film. To be honest, I thought you had some really great takes in there, and I did still enjoy the film. And I think I suppose we do have to give it credit for making us think about these things, but maybe it wasn't intentional and it didn't clarify things. But for me, and maybe we didn't really get onto this, but I think it fits into so many different genres. I think it works as a coming of age film just as much as it does an animated film. I think that's definitely what it is in undertone, and I thought it's really emotionally deep, and I thought it was great. So, well, it wasn't. I'd give it a. I want to give it an 8, but I don't think it's good enough to be. I'll give it an 8. I'll give it an 8, but it's a low 8. You know what I mean? It's like a 7.75
Yeah,
kind of 8. You know what I
it's
mean?
like you're more giving it like respect, like you're giving it more respect than credit. You're not
Exactly.
saying it's great.
Exactly.
You're saying like you respect the process.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the way you see tier list videos where it's like God tier, very good, good. This film just sits in good for me,
Yeah,
but because we do it out of 10, it's probably an 8. You know what I mean?
and you're saying like you subsidize it even in that
Yeah,
tier. So even if
exactly.
it's in good, you put it in like the bottom of good.
Yeah, exactly. Mate, you've nailed it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. But listen, man,
So
did you want to do you want to mention something there, mate?
I was just gonna say, it's been great speaking to you.
Likewise,
I
mate.
wanted to throw out the films that we're going to be talking about next week. If
That's exactly what I was
that's good.
gonna. Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna pass you on to. So, mate, go for it. Crack on.
So in our penultimate Pixar episode part 5 of our Pixar series, we will be talking about The Good Dinosaur, Finding Dory, and Cars 3. I've already had the task, let's say, of watching The Good Dinosaur.
Yeah.
I got myself to watch that, and I don't think it's going to be a film that you enjoy, Matthew.
Oh man, don't say that. Don't say that. But yeah,
You know,
those three films that they're like this is probably the more modern era, would you say, that we're moving into now?
well, yeah, we're approaching the final episode, which is probably the one that I've been looking forward to most.
Oh, best
Uh,
to last, mate.
yeah, so for the final episode, we'll be covering Coco, The Incredibles 2, and Onward. So that's pretty good list.
It's a good list,
Have you
yeah.
seen you've seen just of those films? Have you just seen The Incredibles 2?
I've seen the first half of Coco. So I have. So,
Were you
um
were you underwhelmed? Like, was there a reason that you didn't finish it?
No, I was at my auntie's house and we were watching. I think we were watching the DVD, but I had to go. So,
Ah, okay. Yeah,
uh,
that's probably the one that I've been looking forward to most,
oh,
just
it's
because
good.
it's the
The
one
first
that I
half's
hadn't
very
seen
good.
before that I was most anticipating.
Yeah, man. Well, listen. Do you want me to wrap up the episode then, brother?
Yeah, sure.
No worries. Well, listen, been great recording with you. I think that's probably one of the more deep chats we've had, and this is about Pixar films. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's been good. It's been an emotional journey today, actually.
yeah, it has. I feel like in lockdown we've really been able to ask more contemplative questions as we've been watching the films.
Absolutely,
You know,
man.
because we've been able to give our undivided attention towards it. So I think we've probably put out some of our best content recently, which I'm really proud of.
I'm proud of it too, mate. Love to record with you, and yeah, the next episode, hopefully, I don't know. I can edit this out if it isn't the case, but is it a potential rom-com sequel, my friend?
Yes,
Oh,
indeed.
what films do you
Uh,
want to talk about there? Should we spoil it or give it away, or should we just tell them now?
I say we just go ahead and tell them. So
Okay, go
we'll be
for it.
watching 500 Days of Summer, which is one of Matthew's favorite films, and a film that shaped him. If you want to check out his
I'll link that in the description.
episode
I'll
about
link it.
films
Just
that
check it
shaped
out.
him. No, yeah, link it in the description. Give that a watch. It's a great episode. Movie mates must watch. Uh,
Yeah. Oh yes. Shit. I forgot to mention. Sorry to interrupt you. We've put new playlists in the channel. I forgot to mention this in every podcast, and
yeah,
it's been like this for like a week. So apologies.
yeah,
Yes, there's new playlists in the description in the playlist section. So we've got all our episodes. Like we've got a Riverdale playlist. We've actually got a Pixar playlist, don't we?
yeah.
And we
It was so weird because I had gone onto our YouTube channel to add playlists, and as you were doing it, as I went on to do it, you were actively doing it. Like I could
that's
see
weird.
you adding
What?
videos to
That is
playlists.
weird.
Like I had checked it like 5 minutes before there was nothing, and then the second I clicked on to start adding playlists, there was like a Pixar playlist, and a bunch of others, and I could see you actively adding videos to them, and that was just really weird in
I
that
was just
moment.
thinking, like, just to give a better like format for the channel. You know, if people want to check out, Pixar films or whatever. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
absolutely. Yeah,
Go
so
ahead. Sorry.
aside from 500 Days of Summer, we'll be talking about Love Rosie, one of my favorite films. I've seen it maybe 5 or 6 times in like
Awesome,
four
man.
years. Like it is really incredible. And we'll
Cool.
be talking about Crazy Stupid Love.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Have you seen it?
I have not, I have not seen it, but I've heard good things.
Yeah, I've seen it 3 or 4 times, and we haven't really talked. I think that would be the first Steve Carell film that we'll have talked
Ooh,
about,
first time for
and
everything, man.
he's a sensational actor. So I'm really glad to start getting into his filmography, and I think that like sometimes I sort of like put a real stinker like in the roster so that we have a mix of talking about good and bad films,
Sure.
and I think that's usually that usually happens more when we're talking about a series, and sometimes when we do a theme like obsession or rom-coms, I feel more inclined to only put good films in, just because I want to sort of like give you the best viewing experiences,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think this is probably one of the best lineups of film, but that's sort of self-orchestrated by me, not gonna lie.
That's I don't mind. Like it's up there with Obsession. What you're saying, yeah, and the first rom-com episode.
Yeah, I mean, I just really hope you enjoy Crazy Stupid Love and Love Rosie, but
I'm sure it will.
I'm really looking forward to doing that episode.
Likewise, mate. So yeah, be sure to check out. I think I might put this episode in must-see movie mates just because it was a little different. More emotional chat. So, if that's okay
Yeah.
with you, yeah.
Oh yeah,
No
definitely.
worries. So go check this out. Well, you are if you're listening to this, you already are checking this out. But yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on these Pixar films down below. And stay tuned for early next week, I would imagine, when we're recording and uploading romcoms part 2 and Pixar part 5. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, Callum. Take care and bye bye.
Bye bye.